start with Tasawwuf al-Zidan and still in the subject of الصبر and الصبر with regards to the second type of sabr, the second type of patience, and that is to oppose one's hawa or one's desire, and that is of three categories. The first type, this was about the things that would fit one's desire, how to have patience with the things that fits our desire, with matters of al-afiyah, matters of goodness, matters of health, wealth, all of these things. We need to have patience while we have these things to be obedient to Allah. And as it's mentioned before, that the sabr at the time of afiyah, at the state of afiyah or strength, is much harder than the sabr of the second type. Because the nafs, when it finds what it wants, it tends to be transgressing and tends to be forgetful, wants to follow the desires because it's there. The desire is there, and whatever a person desires is in front of him, it becomes difficult to avoid it. So that's why the sabr definitely is needed there. This is the type where many people, they don't pay attention to it. They think sabr is only in the things that opposes the desire. To be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with whatever is given to the slave of Allah, this needs a lot of sabr for the person to be grateful, to fulfill the acts of worship, to use one's health and one's wealth for the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second type is sabr when it comes to opposing one's desire, and that is in the three famous categories of sabr: to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, facing things that a person is against one's desire, to be away from sins, and to have sabr with matters of the qadar or the matters of calamities or things of that nature that afflicts the person. We talked about the first one, which is regards to al-ta'at, the matters of obedience to Allah, especially again with the days of the Hijjah. We need to have a sabr to do the acts of worship, because the human nafs tends to be doesn't like to be obedient, likes to be following its desire. And as he said, some of the things that with kasal, with laziness, a person needs to oppose his laziness to make salah, and salah whether it's fard or the nafl salah. And every one has some struggle with his own self when it comes to the laziness and the salah. Some people, their laziness is with the fard salah, so they miss the fard salah because they're lazy, because they want to sleep or they don't feel like coming to the masjid, or the struggle if even for them to pray the salah, and they would not come to the masjid but they don't even pray the salah on time because of laziness. And then it's all different levels. And when it comes to the optional salah, the night prayer and things of that nature, also when it comes to the matter of opposing oneself, and a person being greedy, doesn't give zakah and so on. And we talked about that in this type of sabr, the person needs sabr before the ibadah and while doing the ibadah and after they're done from the ibadah. So before the ibadah, to have sabr, to have ikhlas, to have patience, to be sincere, because it's not easy to be sincere if a person leaves himself to his desire, because we like to be praised, we like for people to see our good things and so on. So the person has to suppress this desire in himself, to be sincere, to do things sincerely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore he would learn about ikhlas and how to be sincere, and all of that is related to the tawheed and knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with his names and attributes. And while the person is doing the act of ibadah, not to be forgetful while he's doing the act of ibadah, so he would do it in the best manner with the way of the Prophet ﷺ, and not to be bored or not to do it in haste, for example, while the person is doing the ibadah, to be focused, because the shaitan will try to take the person away. And the third type is after the deed, to have patience, not to expose one's good deeds, talking about it and showing off and so on, or anything that would cancel the deed or render the deed in vain, by, as we said, the example, and men, to remind people of one's favors, just to remind people of your favor, that ruins the reward of what the person did to that person, and the like of this. And we talked about this first type. The second type, in the second category of sabr, the things that opposes one's desire is الصبر عن المعاصي. To have patience, to be away from sins. As he says, وَمَا أَحْوَجَ الْعَبْدَ إِلَى ذَلِكَ. How in need is the slave of Allah to this sabr, to this patience, to be away from sins. يقول ثم إن كان الفعل مما تيسر فعله كمعاصي اللسان من الغيبة والكذب والمراء ونحوه كان الصبر عليه أثقل. It's important to look into these things and to look at the sins and how it's committed and the categories of it, because it makes it easy for the person to be able to have patience away from sins. He says if the sin is one of the sins that are so easy to be done, easy sin, like what? Ghiba, backbiting, that's one of the easiest sins ever. Lying, arguing and disputes and the like of this. If it's like that, then a sabr is much heavier, is much difficult, although the deed is easy. Because the deed is easy, that means the person has to have more sabr, because it's very easy to slip into these sins. فَتَرَى الْإِنسَانَ إِذَا لَبِسَ حَرِيرًا اسْتَنْكَرَ ذَلك. He says if you find a person a man wears harir or silk, he would hate that so much. He cannot do that because it's a sin, and it's easy for him to stay away from it. But at the same time, وَيَغْتَابُ أَكْثَرَ الْهَادِ. But most of the day he's just backbiting others and doing riba of others. فَلَا يَسْتَنْكِرُ ذَلك, and he doesn't find himself abhorring or hating that sin as he would hate wearing silk, for example. وَمَنْ لَمْ يَمْلِكْ لِسَانَهُ فِي الْمُحَاوَرَاتِ وَلَمْ يَقْدِرْ عَلَى الصَّبْرِ لَمْ يُنْجِهِ إِلَى الْعُزْرِ. But before getting into this part, this is just an example, right? And each person should be aware of what is he doing and how the sins that he commits, what's easy and what's difficult and so on. You would find a person, for example, he would see others that are so bad because they don't come to the masjid, for example. Why? Because he's able to come to the masjid. So you would see that the worst sin ever is when a person doesn't come to the masjid. But when it comes to his sin, he would belittle it. He won't see that thing is so evil, like backbiting, for example. Like backbiting, no differences of opinions among the ulama that this is a major sin, it's not a minor sin. Right? Salatul Jama'ah itself, just for the sake of mentioning that it's a fact, there is differences of opinions among the ulama about how mandatory it is. Of course, it's mandatory, in Allahu A'lam, but there is, like this debate like this, the sin of leaving Salatul Jama'ah, right, or the sin as a result of backbiting. This is a major sin. So a person might belittle this, but he would see, so it all sometimes, again, it comes with the desire. The person, his desire gets confused in these matters, so he would make what is big and what is small based on his desire, what's made easy for him, and things of that nature. So, as the example that he mentioned, whoever is not, as he says, whoever is not able to control his tongue when he talks with people and debate with people, argue with people, and he's not able to have patience. If he's not able to be patient in this, then the only way to save himself is al-uzla, to segregate himself, to isolate himself, never to indulge into these things. Why? Because he has no patience. He will fall into haram. So this is the sabr an al-ma'asi. So seeing what is easy and what is difficult, the sins that are made easy, the sabr on it is more difficult. If a person lives in an environment where it's so easy to see haram things, right, then you would find the sabr is more difficult because it's very easy to fall into these sins. But things that people would consider it something very bad, it's easy for him to stay away because he would fit what everybody does, and so on and so forth. So this is to have the sabr away from sins. The third category, ما لا يدخل تحت الاختبار. What's not based on being tested. It's I think he meant al-ikhtiyar. But it's maybe a typo. So what is not a choice of a person? What's not a choice of the person? To do good deeds, that's by choice. To stay away from sins, this is by choice. But the third category is when there is no choice for the slave of Allah, like al-masa'ib, like calamities and the things that a person happens to him without his choice. مثل موت الأحبة, the death of the loved ones, loss of wealth, being blind, he loses his health, and the different types of difficulties that a person might face in this life. فالصبر على ذلك من أعلى المقامات لأن سنده اليقين. Of course, the sabr in these matters is from the highest levels, because what makes the person have sabr in these situations is that he has yaqeen. He has certainty in the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, if a person doesn't have certainty in the rewards, then he lost everything that he has then. He has no certainty in the rewards from Allah. So that's why people even might commit suicide when they lose these types of things. And for the believers, because of the certainty in the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are patient. And they wait for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so on. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُصِبْ مِنْهُ. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for, يُصِبْ مِنْهُ, that means he will afflict him by things. He will afflict him by things as a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants him to be elevated when he is having the sabr and the patience and seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is, since it's not a choice, a person should not seek that. Right? He should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be protected, but once if it happens, he's patient and he's seeking rewards from Allah. يقول والصبر على أذى الناس من أعلى المراتب. And to be patient with the harm that comes from people is also from the highest level of sabr, of patience. And of course, this is the ways of the messengers of Allah. They were sincere in their da'wah and are calling people to the truth, and they had so much sabr when it comes to the harm that that they received from their enemies. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا فَإِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ. If you're patient and you have taqwa, this is from the highest matters of goodness and so on. وقال وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we know that how your chest becomes very tight because of what they say. And the Prophet ﷺ, nobody has been harmed like him with speech, with actions. And these things, of course, especially if the person, he knows that he's on the truth, these things would harm so much. And وَقَالْ وَلَئِنْ صَبَرْتُمْ لَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لِلصَّابِرِينَ. If you're patient, it's better for those, it's better for the sabirin, for the patient ones. He mentioned a hadith, but this hadith is mawdu', it's fabricated. So we'll recite it inshallah ta'ala, just in case if someone read it or heard about it. It's a fabricated hadith. And it doesn't mean that when the hadith is fabricated, that means the words that are mentioned can be true, especially in these subjects of sabr and so on, not ahkam, not rulings, not matters of aqidah. So, but as far as the validity or the authenticity of the hadith, because it follows a very specific scientific process of authenticating the hadith. It's not just by the meaning. Oh, it sounds good, so it has to be authentic. It doesn't work this way. Right? It has to be. The hadith has to pass very tough criteria to make sure that it's authentic, and this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected this deen by the ulama of the hadith, in which they would make sure that the hadith is authentic. That means the Prophet ﷺ had said it. This hadith says الصبر ثلاثة. الصبر are three types. صبر على المعصية, صبر على الطاعة, صبر على المصيبة. Which is the three categories. The sabr is three, to be sabr al-ma'siyah. Sabr when it comes to calamity, sabr when it comes to the matters of obedience, and sabr to be patient away from sins. يقول فمن صبر على المصيبة حتى يردها بحسن عزائها كتب الله له 300 درجة. Which means whoever is patient at times of calamity till he passes it with all kinds of the goodness that comes from it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will write for him 300 levels. Between one level and the other is like between the heavens and the earth. And whoever has patience in matters of obedience, it will be written for him 600 levels. Between one level and the other is like between the earth and the arsh. And whoever has sabr away from sins, it will be written for him 900 levels. Between level and the other is between the earth and the arsh. Again, this hadith is fabricated, is not authentic, But again, the categories of sabr, this is also something that the ulama always talked about, because this is what the ayat of the Quran and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. There are many, of course, authentic hadith, one of which the hadith in the Sahihain, the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما من مصيبة تصيب المسلم إلا كفر الله عز وجل بها عنه حتى الشوكة يشاكه. There is no musibah, there is no calamity, no affliction whatsoever that afflicts a Muslim unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will expiate with it his sin, even if it's a shawka. Shawka, the smallest thing that hurts the person, a thorn or something, he gets poked by it, that expiates the sins. And this is by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to the Messiah. And as the previous hadith, it mentions specifics. Usually the sabr, there's no specifics when it comes to the rewards, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّى الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. The sabirun that are given the rewards without an account, without limit. And this is because of the great act of sabr. Also the hadith, ما يصيب المسلم من وصب ولا نصب ولا هم ولا حزن ولا أذى ولا غم حتى الشوكة يشاكها إلا كفر الله بها من خطايا. Which means the Muslim, ما يصيب المسلم من, right? And this is part of stressing the fact. Like the hadith, ما من أيام العمل الصالح فيها, right? So it makes it very stressed that this is very important days. The same here, ما يصيب المسلم من وصب. There is nothing that would afflict a Muslim, whether it's wasab ولا nasab, whether it's sickness, whether it's pain, ولا ham. The ham is the concern, the stresses of something that is going to happen in the future, or being worried about the future, for example. ولا حزن, grief of something happened in the past. ولا أذى, or any harm, from the slightest to whatever. ولا غم. غم is the sadness. Sometimes a person gets sad without knowing why. Just he doesn't feel good, right? Just like that, right? So it basically all of the different types of things that a person is not pleased with that happens to him in this life. And this life is like this. If a person has good times in it, he would definitely have times that is not good. He feeling bad, pain, emotional, physical, human beings that he's being tested by, children, wife, concerns, whatever there is. So the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this to cover everything in one's life. So any of these things affects the person. حتى الشوكة يشاكها, even if it's as small as the slightest harm, like a thorn or something like this. إلا كفر الله بها من خطايا, unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will expiate his sins by these things. Otherwise, if a person, any sin is being committed, he has to be punished by it. That means everybody will be ruined and punished, and that's by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Plus it elevates and purifies the heart because of the acts of worship, one of which is sabr. حديث آخر لا يزال البلاء بالمؤمن أو المؤمنة في جسده وماله وفي ولده حتى يلقى الله وما عليه خطيئة. And this is also reported by Al-Bukhari and Muslim, that the bala, or the test, will continue to be for the believer, men and women, in his body, in his wealth, in his children, till he meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when he have no sin whatsoever. And the hadith of Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, he said, Ya Rasulullah, أي الناس أشد بلاء? He asked the Prophet ﷺ, who are the most among the people that are being tested? He said, Al-Anbiya, ثم الصالحون, prophets, then the righteous ones, ثم الأمثل فالأمثل من الناس, then the like of the people. So it goes like this. يبتلى الرجل على حسب دينه. Prophet ﷺ saying that the man will be tested according to his deen. فإن كان في دينه صلابة, if he has strength in his deen, زيد في بلاء, he will have more بلاء, he will have more tests. وإن كان في دينه رقة خفف عنه, and if his deen has weakness, then it will be made easy for him. وما يزال البلاء بالعبد حتى يمشي على الأرض وليس عليه خطيئة. And the bala will continue to be on the slave of Allah till he walks on earth when there is no sin on him. And this is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the believers to be purified from their sins. يقول وروينا, and this is that's why he's saying وروينا, like the previous hadith are authentic. And he said وروينا, once you read from وروينا, it had been narrated to us. Then you know that they call it Sirat Tamrid, the ulama of hadith. This is one of the signs that the hadith, that he also see that the hadith is not authentic. But why would he mention it? Right? This is the way the ulama, they would have weak hadith in their books. And for many reasons. One of which, for example, maybe somebody else will authenticate it, for example. Or because it fits the meaning that he wants to say, and he would narrate it in such a way, but the hadith is weak, not to believe that the Prophet ﷺ said it. And also it's part of saving everything, whether it's weak or not authentic. And it depends on the levels of weaknesses, again, according to what the ulama of hadith would categorize it. So he said that we have been narrated to us that the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إذا وجهت إلى عبد من عبادي مصيبة في بدنه أو ماله أو ولده ثم استقبل ذلك بصبر جميل استحييت منه يوم القيامة أن أنصب له ميزانا أو أن أنشر له ديوانا. Which more or less means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if I made my slave face a musibah or a calamity in his body or wealth or children in this life, and he faced this with a beautiful sabr jameel, which is mentioned in the Quran, that Yaqub alayhi salam, he said it, and this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from the believers, to have a beautiful sabr. The beautiful sabr is the sabr that has no complaints in it. Allah subhanahu, according to this hadith, says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I will be shy from him in the day of judgment, that I would put the mizan for him, or to expose his diwan or his book of deed and so on. That means he will be among those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expiate their sins. Again, the hadith is a weak hadith. So now we get to know the three categories, and of course the examples are so many. But then after that he talks about adab al-sabr, how to have the sabr, and how to have the manners of being patient. It's how to be patient with the best manners. And these are like ahkam, like rulings. A person has to learn it, and because it affects us, and how a person would learn this from the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to have patience. He says, من أداب الصبر, from the manners of sabr, استعماله في أول صدمة, في أول صدمة. قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم إنما الصبر عند الصدمة الأولى, which means to use the sabr, to have the sabr in the first instant, not to wait. In the first instant, to have sabr. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, indeed the sabr is in the first hit, in the first shot. And that's what shows whether a person is really, his heart is alive with the remembrance of Allah and the yaqeen and the certainty, or he's forgetful. And as we know, the Prophet ﷺ said this statement to this woman, that when the Prophet ﷺ was passing by in the graveyard, and she was sitting by a grave, and she was crying, but not a normal cry. That means she was doing something that is against the manners of crying. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, he said to her, Ya amat Allah, ittaqillah wasbiri. O slave of Allah, woman. Amat Allah is like the slave of Allah, but in the feminine tense. Slave, there's no feminine to slave, right? Or woman, slave of Allah. Anyway, ittaqillah wasbiri. Fear Allah and have patience. And the Prophet ﷺ, as ulama, they say, would not say that to her unless she showed something that is not appropriate, like raising the voice, things of that nature. So she said, you do not know him. She said that to the Prophet ﷺ, you do not know the one that I'm crying because of his death. And she did know that this was the Prophet ﷺ. A normal reaction to when someone is being advised like this, especially at times of emotions are high. Sadness or happiness. This is, as the ulama they say, the most two difficult times where you can enjoy good and forbid evil. If people are sad, you tell them, but this is not according to this is wrong, this is sin, this is not according to the way the Prophet ﷺ, they're sad. They don't want to listen. What you're talking about, you're doing this and you're telling us this. Or when a person is very high, very happy, right? If he's happy and you try to tell him that you're doing something wrong when you're happy, don't ruin our happiness, right? So when the emotions are high. So she said that to the Prophet ﷺ, not knowing that this is the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ, and this is again the etiquettes and the manners, he did not reply, he left. He said, what he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, he did not stop, don't you know who I am? I'm the messenger of Allah, I'm advising you, and explaining. When she replied like this, the Prophet ﷺ left. So they told her, what did you just say? This is the Prophet ﷺ. So she immediately rushed to the Prophet ﷺ to apologize. She didn't know that it's the Prophet ﷺ, and when she went there, she didn't find someone by the door of the Prophet ﷺ, so she entered. And she was saying, her excuse, I didn't know you, I didn't know that it was you, O Prophet of Allah. So the Prophet ﷺ replied by this statement, إنما الصبر عند الصدمة الأولى. The sabr is from the first shock. So the person has to be prepared always with the taqwa of Allah, with the yaqeen, with the certainty in the words from Allah, so that whatever happens, he already would, the first thing and the words that comes from his mouth and his actions is all based on the sabr. So this is from the manners of sabr, to use it in the first shock. Also from the manners, al-istirja'u 'inda al-musibah. When the musibah happens, al-istirja'. Al-istirja' is to say, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Because of the hadith of Salama radiallahu anha, and he did not mention the hadith. Hadith of Salama radiallahu anha, that the hadith of Salama, as far as I remember, but she didn't say, she said, Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa akhlif li khayran minha. The Prophet ﷺ told her, I'm not sure if there is a statement with inna layna raji'un, because he said that istirja'. Maybe that's what he refers to. Salama radiallahu anha, when her husband Abu Salama radiallahu anhu died, and she got to know the dhikr of the Prophet ﷺ that a person would say when he's in musibah, in a calamity, which is Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa akhlif li khayran minha. Which is, oh Allah, give me reward because of my musibah, my calamity, wakhluf li, and give me what's better than what I missed or what I afflicted with. So when she got to know this dhikr, she said, and who's going to be better than Abu Salam? Who's better than Abu Salam? And you can, so when a wife is saying that about her husband, also this is an amazing thing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when she said the dhikr, what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her who is better than Abu Salam, which is the Prophet ﷺ. So this is, saying inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un also, and as if this is part of the meaning of al-istirja', is to make the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remember that dhikr, to say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. And then he says, وَمِنَ الْأَدَابِ سُكُونُ الْجَوَارِحِ وَاللِّسَانِ فَأَمَّا الْبُكَاءُ فَجَائِزٌ. Also from the manners is to have the al-jawarih, the different parts of the body and the tongue, to be in sukoon, to be in motionless, right? Not doing things, talking, because if you talk when you're like this, a person might say things that are wrong, or doing things that is not appropriate. But as far as the crying, fajaiz, it's permissible to cry and to eat, there's no harm, as long as it's not with a loud voice or saying things. قال بعض الحكماء الجزع لا يرد الفائت ولكن يسر الشامت. الجزع, to be terrified and to show this extreme behavior when a person is sad, it does not bring what you've missed. If someone died, it's not gonna bring them back. And at the same time, it makes those who hate you, then it makes them happier to see you sad and miserable and so on. So from husn al-sabr, from the goodness of the sabr, that ألا يظهر أو ألا يظهر أثر المصيبة على المصاب. That the outcome of the musibah or the calamity does not show on the person. كما فعلت أم سليم امرأة أبي طلحة لما مات ابنها وحديثها مشهور في صحيح مسلم. Like what Sulaym did رضي الله عنها when her son died, and the hadith is very famous in Sahih Muslim. We know the hadith when her son died, and it's a long hadith, and her son died, and this particular son was the most beloved son to Talha, the wife, the husband of Sulaym. And when he died, she did not tell her husband, and she put her son, the death, he died, she put him in a room. Her husband came, she did not tell him the news right away, but instead he had guests with him. She took care of the guests, and she cooked food for them, and did her what she would do, and then after they left, she beautified herself to her husband, and they had intimate relationship, fulfilling the rights of her husband. And then after all of that is done, she said to him, not even directly, your son died. She gave him an example to make it easy for him to accept the news. And she said to him, what do you think about people that they were given ariyah, they were given something to keep from their neighbors or for whatever, like someone was traveling, so can you please keep my car till I come back or whatever. So when that person came back and he asked for his ariyah, for his thing, they refused to give it to him. He said, these are evil people. So then she told them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us that son and he took him back, right? So then he was upset with her that she let him do what he did, and she did not, inform him in the beginning. And in the morning when he went to the Prophet ﷺ and he informed them, the Prophet ﷺ already, the wahy, revelation came to him that he said that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala أعجب بصنيعكما البارحة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with your actions last night. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with her action of what she did, and he blessed that night for you. And it was seen for him 10 children all memorized the Quran. Right? So this is a high level of sabr. That usually women, want something like this, she won't wait till her husband comes home. Right? It's already going to be phone calls and screaming, and of course, we have to if something like this happens, a person should not be harsh towards his wife in these situations and say, see how Sulaym like this. No, it's something that needs to be taught from the beginning. These types of things, people need to be taught these things, these meanings. And that's why whoever wait till the calamity comes and they all of a sudden they want to change to be righteous people, usually they would miss so much first. So that's why in the sabr and the sadmat al-ula, that means the person is already in state of dhikr and obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with the certainty and so forth.
This aspect of sabr, and I think it's a great issue, because if we know her seerah, she was from the earliest converts to Islam. So that indicates that as many years as you are in the deen, you get to become an older employee, if you will, in the deen. So and she was part of the Uhud too.
Right.
She carried those heavy.
Right. Sulaym, and as I said before, but I'm always lazy in this. But this is one of the things I always wanted to give a talk about, the family of Sulaym. If you just look into Sulaym and her husband, and Anas is her son, it's an amazing family by itself. Of how their effort in the deen, and matters of the deen, and the incidences of things, and the sacrifice that they went through. All of this is, of course, is rewarded for. And it doesn't happen, as you said, it doesn't just come by thinking about it. Oh, inshallah, I have so much patience. It doesn't come with strong will, or a person's personality or whatever. It comes as even a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being steadfast on the deen and things of that nature. So this is not to show, and this is part of the complaint, right? A person would complain when he is afflicted, unless of course there's a reason for it, but not to show the effect of the musibah as much as a person can. وقال ثابت البناني مات عبد الله بن مطرف فخرج مطرف على قومه في ثياب حسنة وقد ادهن. He said Abdullah ibn Mutarrif, he died. So Mutarrif, his father, went out to the people. His son died. He went out with nice clothes and combing his hair and put oil on it and things like this. فغضبوا, so they get angry, and they said, يموت عبد الله. Abdullah dies, and you come out, nice clothes and looking nice and things like this. قال أفأستكين لها وعدني ربي تبارك وتعالى ثلاث خصال كل خصلة منها أحب إلي من الدنيا. He said, would I be miskin because of this, or should I have to act in a certain way when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised me 3 things. Each one is more beloved to me than the dunya and whatever it contains, which is وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة أولئك هم المهتدون. Those who when they say إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون, Allah promised them three things in the ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah. They are أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم. They receive salawat from their Lord, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will praise them in the best gathering in the angels. وَرَحْمَةً, they have mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they are those who are guided. They are guided. He said, one of them is more beloved to me than this whole world and whatever it contains. But it doesn't mean, like when a person reads some of these things, that the person doesn't have to oppose his nature. It's okay to be sad. It's not haram for a person to be sad. It's a normal thing for a person to be sad. Even to cry, this is a normal thing. It's not weakness, right? And the Prophet ﷺ himself, he cried when his son Ibrahim died. And when he was asked ﷺ, because when someone thought that this is against patience maybe or so, when the Prophet ﷺ is crying, and the Prophet ﷺ, he said that إِنَّ الْقَلْبَ لَا يَحْزَنُ, indeed the heart becomes sad and grief. وَإِنَّ الْعَيْنَ لَتَدْمَعُ, and the eyes shed tears. ولا نقول إلا ما يرضي ربنا, but we only say what pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِنَّ لِفُرَاقِكَ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ لَمَحْزُونُونَ, and indeed we are sad and grieved because of your departure, O Ibrahim, his son. So this is mercy in the hearts of people. For a person to be harsh, as you might read in some of the books, that someone, for a loved one dies and the person is, instead of being sad, is doing the total opposite. This is against human nature. It's extreme, and sabr does not mean that a person has to be like this, right? And it's all about what the heart being, instead of knowing that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but to be grieved or to be sad, this is a normal thing, and the person pushes away this, of course, as much as he can from his heart, and knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most wise. قال تعالى, and he mentioned the ayah, وقال مطرف ما شيء أعطي به في الآخرة قدر كوز من ماء إلا وددت أنه أخذ مني في الدنيا. And this is also one of the sentences, as the ulama, they say, might sound a little bit extreme, and that's not something from the Prophet ﷺ. He said there's nothing that a person will be given in the day of judgment, even if it's a cup of water, unless I wish that was taken away from me in the dunya. This is, again, but it's a heart can reach this level of being according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to do. وقال صلة عشيم في مغزى له ومعه ابنه فقال أي بني تقدم فقاتل حتى أحتسبك فحمل فقاتل حتى قتل ثم تقدم فقتل فاجتمع النساء عند أمه معاذة العدوية فقالت مرحبا إن كنتن جئتن تهنئنني وإن كنتن جئتن لغير ذلك فارجعن. He said that he was with his son in one of the battles, and he said to his son, you go forward, I want to seek rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but you being a martyr, right? So he ended up, being a martyr. He died, and then the women, they all gathered by his mother's place, and his mother, she said to them, to the woman coming to give condolences, she said to them, welcome, if you're coming to give me, to congratulate me. But if you're coming for something else, go back. And actually, even this is something that has been the norm of the people when someone, they have a good ending in their life, especially if they hope they are martyrs. You would find people, instead of being in condolences, they would give juice and things like this because they're happy. And again, nobody should make a decision that someone is in Jannah because he died in that way or that way. But the person would say, we hope that he is someone that has a good ending. So with this, he says, وَإِذَا كَانَتِ الْمُصِيبَةُ مِمَّا يُمْكِنُ كِتْمَانُهَا فَكِتْمَانُهَا مِنْ نِعْمِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. If the musibah is feasible for the person to be hidden, then this is from the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He mentioned here a hadith. Also the hadith is mursal, as he says here in Hamish. That means there is no Sahabi or the Tabi'i. He mentioned it directly without mentioning the Sahabi. But this is here, he says that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا مَرِضَ الْعَبْدُ بَعَثَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ مَلَكَيْنِ, that if a slave of Allah is sick, Allah would send two angels to him, and he would say, انظروا ما يقوله لعواده, and he would say to them, see what he is saying to those who visit him when he's sick. If he, فإن هو حمد الله تعالى إذا دخل, if he's praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, says Alhamdulillah, when they enter him, رفع ذلك إلى الله تعالى وهو أعلم, they would narrate or take this to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he knows best, and he would say لعبدي إن أنا توفيته أن أدخله الجنة, to my slave, if he dies, I will make him enter Jannah. وإن شفيته, and if I cure him, أن أبدله لحما خيرا من لحم, that I will give him better health and better blood, and to expiate his sins. Of course, the meaning here is, yes, if a person is sick, he should not complain. And this is one of the manners of sickness, unless the doctor is asking him what's wrong. If he says nothing wrong, I mean, the doctor will be deceived. So when he's saying to the doctor what's wrong with him, in his heart, he's not complaining, he's not like, doesn't like what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested him with, he's just saying it for the sake of, making sure that they know exactly what's happening. But when people visit him, right, he should not be complaining, but instead he should give, good things, and to be patient and so on. يقول قال علي رضي الله عنه من إجلال الله ومعرفة حقه ألا تشكو وجعك ولا تذكر مصيبتك. He's saying from the exalting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and knowing the rights of Allah, that you don't complain about your pain so much, and do not remember your musibah and calamity and so on. قال أحنف لقد ذهبت عيني منذ 40 سنة ما ذكرتها لأحد. He said, I lost my eyes for 40 years, I didn't mention that to anyone. وقال رجل الإمام أحمد, this is a very famous narration from Imam Ahmad, كيف تجدك يا أبا عبد الله? How do you find yourself? He was sick. He says, قال بخير في عافية. I'm good in عافية, in good health, إن شاء الله. فقال له حممت البارحة. He asked him, did you have fever last night? So قال إذا قلت لك أنا في عافية فحسبك لا تخرجني إلى ما أكره. He says to him, if I told you I'm good, this is sufficient for you. Do not take me out to what I don't like to say. Right? So, to make sure that he does not go into complaining. But sometimes, of course, if a person wants to, people might, like for example, you missed your appointment with someone because you were sick. Right? And if you tell him, I'm, mashallah, very healthy, he's going to get angry with you. So it's to avoid the harm and so on. It's okay to say that, as long as the person is not lying, and as long as he's not complaining about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala afflicted him. And I always mention this, but I remember this one brother that he died, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mercy on him, and he was afflicted with all kinds of diseases. He had cancer, and he was paralyzed, all of his body is paralyzed. He got shot in the back, and he was paralyzed totally. So he had somebody who has to feed him all the time, and then he got cancer and surgery after surgery, things like this. You would just love to go visit that brother. You go visit him. How are you? Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed His great favor on me. And he start talking as if he is someone that is given all kinds of good things. And he would never mention, that he just came out of surgery, and the doctors would say that he's in so much pain. And they would give him so much medication, but wallahi, I never heard him complaining whatsoever. Not even one time. So some people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow His favor like that on them. يقول وقال شريف بن الخير من شكى مصيبة به إلى غير الله لم يجد في قلبي لطاعة الله حلاوة. Whoever complains his musibah to other than Allah, he will never find in his heart the sweetness of the ta'ah or the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to have as much as a person can, to keep it between the person and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إنما أشكو بثي وحزني إلى الله. As Yaqub alayhi salam, he said, I complain and I express my grief to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what is best. We didn't do the fiqh yet. but maybe we can stop here. But there's only to the end of the fasl, to the chapter. Abd al-Malik ibn Umar ibn Abd al-Aziz, when he died, دفنه Umar ibn Abd al-Aziz, he buried his son, and he got his grave done and everything, and then he stood up. So people surrounded him, and he said, Umar ibn Abd al-Aziz said, Rahimakallah ya bunay, may Allah have mercy on you, son. You were righteous to your father, and wallahi, since Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed you on me, I was happy with you. You were not anything but being happy with you, and so on. It was something like this. So he was praising him and not saying anything that is easy. One last thing is, he says, فإن قيل إذا كان المراد من الصبر عدم كراهية المصائب فلا قدرة للآدمي على ذلك وإن كان الفرح بوجودها كما حكيتم فهو أبعد. He's saying that when a person hears these types of things, he says, if what is meant by sabr or patience, not to hate masa'ib or the calamities, this is not in the capacity of the human being to have this. And if a person meant for him to be happy, right, also this is even much more difficult. So he said, أن الصبر, and this is what brings things together. He said, أن الصبر لا يكون إلا عن محبوب أو على مكروه ولا ينهى عما لا يدخل تحت الكسب. The sabr is either on something to be loved or something that you're away from that you dislike, and no one is to be forbidden when it comes to matters of one's earning, one's actions. Something that is not in his capacity. Like if a person, if a person, he's disturbed from inside, sad from inside, this is something over the capacity of the person. So what is condemned is your choice. So when the choice of a person to say words, that's a choice. To do something physically, that's a choice. But to feel sad, that's not a choice. You know, it's something that is over the capacity of the person. That's why it's not haram for the person to be sad. But it's haram to tear the clothes, to beat the face. You know, as the Prophet ﷺ said, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ شَقَّ الْجُيُوبَ وَأَطْرَمَ الْخُدُوَ. He's not one of us. Those who would tear their clothes at times of calamities, or that beat themselves, or to say things, وَدَعَ بِدَعْوَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ, or say ignorant things of jahiliyyah, sometimes kufr, disbelief, words of disbelief. A person would question the qadr of Allah, the wisdom of Allah, things of that, why this is happening to me, what, like this. You know, this is a choice that he had. But as he said, فَأَمَّا مَنْ مَا ذَكَرْنَا مِنْ فَرَحِ بَعْضِهِمْ فَذَلِكَ فَرَحٌ شَرْعِيٌّ لَا طَبْعِيٌّ. Those who we mentioned that they were happy at times of calamity, it's not the natural happiness, it's the farah shar'i, it's a religious happiness, right? It's like when a person is fasting, he's not enjoying fasting by his innate and his nature. Nobody enjoy hunger and being thirsty. But what is he enjoying? He's enjoying the obedience to Allah. There's some type of enjoyment, it's the religious enjoyment. So the same thing when the person is in sabr at times of calamity, physically he's not enjoying it, he's sad. But when it comes to the shara', to the deen, there's an enjoyment there. He's not enjoying the musib. This is where it becomes to some extreme or so. Because the tab', and that's what, whoever think that one's nature becomes that he loves calamities, that's something wrong with that person. Right? And he says the example, a person that is sick, and he needs medicine for his sickness, right? And the medicine, he would try to get it so much, and he would spend so much money, and once he get it, he was very happy that he got it, right? The medicine tastes bitter, so why this person is happy that he's drinking something that tastes nasty? Because he knows that this is something that has shifa or has means of cure for him. يقول ولو أن ملكا قال لرجل فقير كلما ضربتك بهذا العود اللطيف ضربة أعطيتك 1000 دينار. If the king says to someone, a poor guy, every time I hit you one, with this nice stick, I'll give you 1,000 dinar with every hit. The man would love to be hit. Why? Because he's poor. Not because he's not in pain, but because whatever he is seeking, from being hit by the stick. And the same thing, to make it closer, this is how the Salaf, when they get to see the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after the matter is already done, this is where these types of words will come from them. So we'll stop inshallah ta'ala at this point, and then after that he talks about the dawa' sabr, how to have the means of the sabr and how to be helped in this matter.